members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to warmly and wholeheartedly welcome you all to our third press briefing in the year 2025. Over the past few weeks, we have been inundated with queries from different sectors of society seeking our opinion and comment as the CF on the developments taking place in the country. While we have addressed some of the queries on an ad hoc basis, we would also like to use this platform to give a comprehensive response to all the queries, and more importantly, we would like to give you, members of the press, the opportunity to ask some of those burning questions you may have. If you recall, it was during our last press briefing that we announced our exit from the alliance that we had been a part of for slightly over a year, and over the past few weeks, the Citizens First has come under attack from some quarters of society, and sadly so, even from some fellow opposition leaders that have made it their main task to caucus on how they see the CF as not being committed to working with other parties. It is our intention to address those concerns. In fact, that is the main thrust of today's press briefing, to give hope to the people of Zambia and assure them of the CF's ambition to liberate this country and retire this repressive government Thank you very much. Countrymen and women, before I go into details, allow me to congratulate the Fourth Estate on the milestone you have scored of being duly registered and recognized as the Media Self-Regulation Council of Zambia. As a keen observer, I am fully aware of the headwinds you have had to endure to get yourselves to this point of having the certificate issued. I have every confidence that as members of the Fourth Estate, you have what it takes to uphold the highest level of professionalism, and you will do everything to resist any temptation to compromise your profession. Congratulations, and please ensure that you help us in the political space to demonstrate that as professionals, you can uphold ethics and operate with integrity. I can only hope and pray that with the progress you have made on the aspect of self-regulation, this will help put to rest government's intention to further regulate journalism through the Zambia Institute of Journalism Bill. It is our well-founded position as Citizens First that this bill was dead on arrival and should be withdrawn from the floor of Parliament. In the last press briefing, we took some time to define democracy for Mr. Ichilema based on the understanding of scholars and seasoned politicians that have run developed economies and democracies. We went on to highlight some key excerpts from the Republican Constitution with a view that the President would take time to read and understand the Republican Constitution to avoid some of the challenges the country is currently experiencing. Clearly, that effort seems to have been wasted. However, we shall continue to raise our concerns and help Zambian citizens to understand that this government is a failed project that lacks the character expected of leaders of taking ownership when one falls short of their commitment and promise. Instead, citizens have been faced with a wave of accusations, blame and counter-blame, and total refusal to accept the fact that the UPND is now in government and therefore should be ready to provide solutions to the problems the country is faced with. To mitigate the void that has been created by this absentee leadership, The Citizens First is presenting itself as a credible government in waiting that stands ready to provide solutions to the challenges that the citizens are faced with. While our ambition is to provide checks and balances and seek to hold the government accountable, it is also our desire to provide solutions to the ills the country is currently going through. The Citizens First intends to continue on this path of showcasing itself as a credible alternative that the citizens of this country should consider giving the mandate after the 2026 general elections. Members of the press, countrymen and women, the CF leadership has continued to re-echo the fact that Zambia is faced with an existential threat that is not emanating from resource scarcity or foreign attacks, but rather the nation is faced with a serious leadership void that today one would easily surmise that the nation is on autopilot. We have a situation where those in State House can spend time and money to create a commercial to try and convince people that the government has attained 90% of its election campaigns. And yet, under the same government, you hear other senior leaders complaining of economic hardships and seeking to attribute those same hardships on the previous government. As if that is not enough, the Vice President, on the other hand, is admitting to their failures at a totally wrong forum, but still trying to convince the citizens to vote for them next year, besides the glaring failures under their watch. We are in trouble. The country is in trouble and requires immediate remedy. The reality is that Zambia is under siege, and those who do not accept that are doing that at their own peril. The nation is under siege from an experimental leadership that has clearly failed, and the citizens must be reminded of their civic duties, which among them includes encouraging their family members who are 18 years and above to apply for NRCs and voters' cards, so that come 13th August 2026, they show up in large numbers to put this experiment to a stop once and for all. We would all make a resolve to end cyber laws by voting out the bully. We must bring to an end police brutality and harassment by voting out the UPND and its leadership. We must work together as a united front and say no to tribal division and vote out the current leadership that is keen on dividing us based on tribe and region of origin. The people of Zambia must resolve to restore one Zambia, one nation by voting out the UPND and its leader, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. The country is currently faced with a serious leadership crisis that demands urgent remedy, and frankly speaking, the country cannot afford to go for yet another 5 years of hunger and starvation without any chance of resolving the problem. Zambia needs a leadership that will take ownership rather than allocate blame. Thank you. The CF will accept responsibility and not attribute any challenge to others while seeking to take credit for their successes. The Citizens First is calling upon the opposition, civil society organizations, and all well-meaning organizations like the clergy, trade unions, student bodies, and indeed the general citizenry to come together and help reset the nation. This is a time for a total reset. So we start allowing Zambian citizens to take ownership of their economy. We need to reset and get back the factors of production and allow Zambians to be the drivers of the economic engine, and more importantly, to allow the country to regain the position of respect among its neighbors in the region and beyond. We in the Citizens First are alive to the fact that Zambia's development agenda lies in the hands of Zambian citizens, and it is for this reason that the CF is calling on all stakeholders to come together and rid the nation of this repressive regime of Mr. Hichilema that is keen on transferring strategic assets to their cronies for no monetary consideration, while sending his finance minister to go and borrow for balance of payment support when they should be collecting correct taxes from the mining companies. How does an ailing economy like ours have so many billions being externalized, and yet there is little industrial activity taking place? Tell me, how much is being externalized from Zambia? And I'll tell you why the kwacha has remained under pressure from the time someone was sworn in at 10 hours. The hard reality of the kwacha is that we have an economy that is driven by foreign interests, and rather than address the challenge, the UPND government felt the compulsion to further entrench that without any plan to address the challenge. The CF has a plan to give back the economy to Zambians. We shall ensure that Zambians are prioritized on all economic activities, not just as subcontractors, but also as main contractors. We want a people-driven economy. We want to give an opportunity to our people to thrive, and those people will be Zambians regardless of their race, color, or creed. The country's ambition of being a prosperous middle-income nation is currently under threat, owing to the fact that we have little control over our economy, and the leadership does not seem to have a cogent redemption plan that will help Zambians to take over the wheel. This ambition can never be attained with a government that has a mindset of supporting foreign interests at the expense of Zambian citizens. Members of the press, while the country is faced with a myriad of challenges under the outgoing UPND government, we want to spend a bit of time to discuss some of these challenges and what potential mitigation the Citizens First will deploy once we form government. Among the challenges we are faced with include diplomatic standoff. The CF appreciates the fact that Zambia is a sovereign state, and the missions accredited to Zambia are expected to operate in line with the Vienna Convention. It is ironic, however, that while the US Embassy made frantic efforts to have the issue of missing pharmaceuticals addressed by the Zambian government, the relevant bodies that should have dealt with that did not take those meetings seriously. If they did, the issue would have been resolved before the 10th meeting was held. But no. But not only did they exceed 10 meetings, but based on the information presented by the US ambassador, a total of 33 meetings were held at different levels, coupled with an offer of resources to help track and trace the stolen drugs. It is therefore uncouth for government to take a stance that they have taken in condemning the ambassador, who seems to be more caring about Zambian citizens, who will end up suffering from lack of key life-saving drugs than Zambian government officials. The caution to government is that they should not be too quick to quote the Vienna Convention when they are not keen to address their own housekeeping issues. And I speak as former foreign minister. Thank you very much. The caution to government is that they should not be too quick to quote the Geneva Convention when they are not keen to address their own housekeeping issues. The Americans, out of their generosity, have extended the support of providing life-saving drugs, and to ask that you account for the drugs does not construe or disregard the Vienna Convention. It is also important to note that the US has been an all-weather friend whose support has consistently been linked to accountability, good governance, and freedom of speech. These are areas where they have supported the Zambian government in building capacity around. It is therefore unacceptable that the outgoing government feels undermined when they are called to account for the donor support we get. Leadership demands accountability, and what the US ambassador is asking for is nothing short of what is expected from those who call themselves public leaders. It is true that a government that has perfected the art of telling lies and half-truths to its citizens was finally caught in its own web and wants to hide under the Vienna Convention. That will not fly. Please provide answers feed the nation. The citizens first would like to see a plan that is intended to reduce the cost of production for small-scale farmers so that even when the floor price of commodities is reduced, the profit margins for the farmers is still going to make farming a profitable venture. As long as government continues on the path of single sourcing to the same known individuals and entities, we shall continue to have expensive inputs that translates into expensive maize and very expensive mealie meal. Instead of dealing with a supply chain where the originating costs are relatively higher, we have seen sections of the media where some government officials are threatening retail outlets to reduce the cost of their mealie meal. This is unacceptable, as it does not address their costs. It doesn't. It's good to see the choir here. We want to call upon our governments to take corrective measures and ensure that they manage the cost of production, as doing so is what will give a true reflection in the cost of mealie meal. 3, the fight against corruption. The CF is concerned that 4 years after forming government, we have not seen any tangible results in the fight against corruption, save for cases of those who served in the PF government. We have also seen a lot of accused persons and people of interest crossing over into UPND to buy protection against prosecution. Now, this has created a view that it does not matter what one does, provided they are members of the ruling party, they'll be safe. It is our well-founded position in the Citizens First that the fight against corruption must not be based on political leaning or patronage. It must be objective, unbiased, and intentional. And the starting point in that intentionality is when Mr. Ichilema declares his assets so that the nation can know what he is worth. When we form government, we shall place equal weight on CF members, just as we shall deal with past corruption cases. We shall take measures to address corruption by active employees while addressing legacy corruption cases. It is for this reason that we would like to warn those serving in government now to refrain from all corrupt practices, as there shall be no golden parachute of joining the ruling party as a way of escaping your corrupt past, as is the case in the current regime. We will investigate legacy corruption while weeding out corrupt practices in the procurement of petroleum, fertilizer, and allocation of mining licenses, recruitment of civil servants, and all strategic services. We will ensure that the Anti-Corruption Commission is removed from the presidency and given the autonomy to run independently. We've got so many members of the press here. You should keep this video. We will ensure that the Anti-Corruption Commission is removed from the presidency, as well as the Drug Enforcement Commission. For mismanagement of CDF. While we appreciate the history and significance of CDF, it is important to highlight the fact that the current CDF structure is unable to deliver the intended ambition of meeting the needs of the citizens. The policy and structure needs a total overhaul for it to be effective, efficient, transparent, and accountable to the people. The policy and the structural changes must cover the following: improve administrative and capacities at all levels, zonal, ward, constituency, and secretarial levels. Each constituency must have independent and constituency-dedicated engineers, social workers, economic planners, auditors, and a monitoring team. The composition of the committees at all levels will need to have a secondment of qualified staff from line ministries, such as education, health, agriculture, and social welfare. These must be full-time staff dedicated to the committees, and all elected officials must be compensated for their time when dealing with CDF, otherwise their work becomes pedestrian. The loan component of the CDF should be removed and directed to CEC, Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission. As the constituency does not have the capacity to deal with loans, that is misplaced. As if it is who is paying back those loans. Can government tell us how that loan book is being looked after, and how many people have paid back or actively doing so? The banks tasked to handle loans on behalf of CDF will soon be crying about non-performing loans, and they'll be making their demand from government. The grants component must be made more transparent and non-political, and based on a NRC member being a control, that whoever gets these funds, irrespective of who they are or which party they belong to, they cannot qualify for another grant until 3 years. The procurement process for CDF projects must be revised so as to make sure that the social and economic benefits remain in the wards and constituencies. A failure to addressing some of these issues means that CDF will continue to be nothing but another appendage on the UPND list of lies. The CF sees CDF as a process that should lead to food centralization, and we shall ensure that we create capacity for the CDF in our quest to actualize food centralization. 5, continued load shedding. Is it still there? Is there anyone here being load shedded? MCC mode. Continued load shedding. When will ZESCO stop prioritizing export of power and start supporting Zambians? We want government to give us a roadmap that will lead us to full recovery before all our SMEs close out and forget about doing business in Zambia. The cost of not having power is killing Zambian businesses. And the earlier government realizes that, the better. Kariba is a shared resource between Zambia and Zimbabwe. On the Zambian side, we are complaining of load shedding. On the Zimbabwean side, they seem to have overcome that challenge. We have been told that the reason they do not want to stop load shedding is for fear that people will realize how expensive power has become. And in doing so, companies are suffering. And today, a good number of saloons, barber shops, butcheries, welders, and other small-scale companies have closed because of power exports. Kanshi, when is enough enough? Communication in Zambia is now going back to the 90s era, owing to towers being equally affected by load shedding. This outgoing government of Mr. Ichilema has failed to appreciate that in the 21st century, power is a necessity. To prioritize energy export at the expense of citizens is not just abominable, but it goes to affirm the well-held view that this government of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema has no heart for the people of Zambia. They are more about transaction than meeting the plight of citizens. When the CF forms government, will take a more responsible approach of allocating power to citizens and will only export excess power rather than the current situation where power is being exported even when ZESCO is falling short of meeting the national demand. And I've said this, and I'll say it again, that the moment I will lift that Bible, there at, is it at the Heroes SJ or wherever you're going to? The moment we lift that Bible, so help me God, is when even those power contracts that they have signed will come to a closure. Exporting power to other countries when you don't have power yourselves, it's not right. It's very offensive. And we've been speaking about this, and it's now like a song, and they're used. Let them speak, let them speak. We cannot be having neighbors coming to thank us in this country for giving them power. The CF government will push for technology transfer and the development of alternative energy through solar, wind, thermal, as well as nuclear energy. Our ambition is to increase our generation to over 20,000 megawatts to support our industrialization agenda in line with the CF manifesto. That is our agenda. We have said, and that is why when I was foreign minister, I'm not speaking things that are platonic. I'm speaking about things that I was doing even when I was in government. For those who keep saying, what did Kalaba do? Right now, when you go along Airport Road, we have a nuclear plant that should have been created. And we began creating or identifying our students in the universities who are good at sciences to go and study nuclear science. In Russia, we signed a bilateral agreement with the Russian authorities. The nuclear plant there should be able to be producing 20,000 megawatts if completed. How come we are not doing that? We have chosen to be just hunting right, left, and center without putting our money where it matters most. When we come into government, we understand as citizens first. You cannot have industries in the absence of energy. So we need to deal with the monster, the artificial deficit of energy, because it is artificial. We'll deal with it when we come into government. In addressing the challenges the country is currently grappling with, As highlighted above, the Citizens First will continue to fight for the plight of the poor and the underprivileged. This is our forward-looking position. It is our ambition to work with other progressive political parties. And I say progressive political parties, citizens, civil society, church, and other religious bodies, youth organizations, and women organizations, as well as professional bodies, to get rid of this repressive government and form a representative government after the elections in 2026. To implement our ambition, our forward-looking plan will address the following. I'll be finishing soon. 1. Intensify mobilization. The Citizens First will continue to consolidate and mobilize itself around the citizens of Zambia. As a progressive party, we remain committed to working with other parties on the basis of mutual respect, transparency, integrity, and respect for the rule of law. 2. Repeal all draconian laws. The Citizens First is alive to the fact that for a country to succeed, freedom of expression and freedom of association are key. We will therefore repeal all laws that will infringe on the rights of the citizens and allow them to enjoy freedom as guaranteed by the Bill of Rights. It is our position that a free mind is a more productive mind and attracts more than a repressed mind. We will give back the country to the citizens. Zambians love their freedom. And that is what the CF in government will give back to the people and take away the gags. 3. Investigate and reverse suspicious transactions. All transactions that have disadvantaged Zambians shall be revisited and reversed. It is our ambition as the Citizens First to ensure that the interests of Zambians are safeguarded at all costs. And in this regard, fraudulent transactions that have been entered into shall be reversed with illegal measures being taken against the perpetrators in order to recover any outstanding amounts. Yes, the mines the issue there. 3. Plugging revenue leakages, the mining sector. While the current government has admitted a failure to adequately tax the mining houses, the Citizens First will deploy well-trained personnel to ensure that any leakages are closed. We will also deal with malpractices around transfer pricing that have become endemic with most MNCs. We will work with them towards meeting international best practice, and any failure to do so will be followed through to their countries of origin. We will invest in electronic tracking mechanisms that will allow for the revenue authorities to track and trace all possible flaws, with punitive measures being taken for any breaches. 4. Strengthening of institutions of governance. The CF will enhance governance of oversight institutions by giving them the deserved autonomy and capacity to prosecute without fear or favor. There will be no cover of the ruling party under CF. The CF leaders will have a higher demand for integrity, owing to the fact that the CF leader himself here upholds integrity and hates corruption with impunity. And that is why I will lead by example, by declaring my assets first and making sure that an annual attestation is made to show the movement of wealth other than the current situation we have. 5. Employment creation through value addition. The Citizens First will unwind the structural misalignment of the UPND government in terms of jobs, accounting for over 80% of all jobs that have been created in the last 4 years of them being in government. We'll address this misalignment through creating opportunities for the private sector to grow their companies and allow for more Zambians to be employed. We are tired of creating opportunities for foreigners and not Zambians. We have remained as a country without billionaires. We are always asking for help from other countries simply because our own people are languishing in their poverty. This situation will be corrected. The Citizens First will also have priority sectors that will be restricted to Zambians alone to avoid overexposure to unhealthy competition coming from financially well-supported foreign companies. 6, make CDF functional. We use CDF as a means to actualizing full centralization. 7, prioritizing Zambian citizens to spur economic development. Whereas the current government has made it clear that they prefer doing business with foreign companies, the CF believes its success will be anchored on its ability to work with Zambian-owned companies and creating opportunities for them to grow into bigger business entities. The Citizens First will prioritize payment of local suppliers and contractors and will enact a law that will prohibit the use of local pension funds money to support foreign entities. Like we are seeing now. Zambian pension funds will be invested in Zambian-owned companies, while foreign companies will be encouraged to bring in investments from outside Zambia. Thank you very much. In conclusion, the Citizens First will not waver from its focus to liberate the people of Zambia from the shackles of poverty and deprivation. We are alive to the fact that to achieve our ambition for the greater good of the people of Zambia, there will be detractors who will want to sabotage our ambition to liberate the people of Zambia. Allow me to state for the record that the Citizens First has always respected and put the interests of the people of Zambia first, just like the name Citizens First suggests. We have heard the loud calls by the citizens for a united opposition, and we agree with that call for a united opposition. However, it is important to recall that the Citizens First has demonstrated its willingness to work with other opposition parties and leaders as long as it is genuine unity. We stood with other leaders at the inception of UKA, and I'm sure the former chairperson Saki will tell you about this, and did so selflessly. The Citizens First supported and stood with all members of UKA, with whom I still share a sound personal connection. This was at a time when the former president's eligibility case was still very active, and others did not see it fashionable to align themselves with him and the PF. Yes. SP. The country witnessed Citizens First share a common stage at the rallies and campaign together with the former head of state, yes, while others thought it was political suicide. We did that not out of political expedience, but by a strong desire to foster unity of purpose and working hard hosting a draconian ruler who needs to be reminded that Zambia is a democracy and not a dictatorship or a monarchy. The CF further demonstrated its willingness for true unity of purpose by not fielding candidates in certain by-elections, such as Kawambwa, and opted to support other parties. This is a demonstration of how pure and well-meaning our intentions and desire to work with others are. Going forward, we shall continue on this trajectory, but like I said, this has to be with well-meaning partners that understand that the CF is a party that places the will of the people first and remain resolved to getting rid of the UPND government and usher in a people-driven government that will place Zambian citizens first. And to meet this ambitious agenda, we will continue to align with the desires of the citizens, from whom we draw our name, mandate, and aspiration. So those of you who think, no, there is a by-election coming up in Lumezi, the citizens first, are you fielding? Of course we are fielding. We are fielding a candidate in Lumezi. And that does not demonstrate that we don't mean well for other opposition leaders. If they have chosen to field one candidate, 2-3 parties have chosen, that is their right. You cannot restrict yourselves' opinions to say this is the full opposition. You will not talk about an opposition at the exclusion of the citizens first. We are in the opposition ourselves. But we are saying, as we respect people's views, they should also mind our space. That is important. I thank you, and may God bless our nation, Zambia.